Hi everyone, welcome back to Babylon Irons. You have Sloth and myself. And Sloth, it's been a week and we have 2 signings announced. This is incredible for West Ham to have 2 signings done in a week. And the player we've signed is Kyle Walker-Peters. So this is an intelligent signing, a player that can work on both flanks. It's good for West Ham to have this. It's someone that's clearly going to fit Potter's kind of tactical view of flexibility and so on. And what we're going to do, kind of always do really, but hopefully add a little bit more structure to it, is we're going to kind of talk about the data behind Kyle Walker-Peters, why we think that maybe puts him as a good fit for West Ham, and then we're going to kind of do the eye test, what the data doesn't show. Again, we're going to talk about strengths, maybe what we see as his weaknesses, and how we believe he maybe fits into Potter's ideal plan. And yeah, then we'll just do what we always do, wrap up and try and be slightly positive, even if there isn't anything positive about. But there is, at least in this occasion. So,
spoiler.
Don't worry, this is us. There will ultimately be something we find to pick at. But let's start this. So Kyle Walker-Peters, everyone is quite aware of Kyle Walker-Peters. He's been in the Premier League for quite a few years. Obviously went down with Southampton last year, but 20-year-old right back. Yes, I know it says left back here, but he did also play quite a bit left back last season for Southampton. But the important thing is, as that heat map shows, this is a player who is completely flexible, tactically, able to play both sides, both flanks. He is able to play kind of more inside. As you can see from the heat map, he does like to kind of invert and be inside. But he's also a player that's going to give you that width that you need. So from the perspective as a replacement understudy, however you want to put it, for Wan-Bissaka when we need it, we've got a player who's very keen to hold that wide space as Wan-Bissaka does, can also come inside as well and be very comfortable in possession as well. Obviously, when we look at kind of what he brings in terms of that final third output, only 2 assists. I think last year in Championship, which he was fantastic in, only got 3 assists. However, that doesn't tell the complete whole story for Kyle Walker-Peters. I think it would be disingenuous to suggest that is a true reflection maybe of his outputs in the final third. It can be inconsistent. I think that's fair to say. But last year he was also probably, no disrespect Southampton fans, I apologise, but one of the worst teams we've seen in the Premier League for many a year. But he was a standout within that. And from a defensive point of view, he's very good defensively, position-wise. Yes, his duels is quite low, but also he had very high number of duels he had to go into over the course of the season. His ability to intercept, again, his numbers are quite low down, and again, his interceptions, but I wouldn't necessarily put this completely down to a lack of being able to read the game. I just think he was in a team where if he was stepping out to try and make those interceptions, the team would have been exposed to trying to sit in and try and actually hold his position. But where we really have seen him flourish last year is the fact that he can play the ball really well. He can find his way out of trouble by utilising his passing. He's calm under pressure. He gets forward very often. Again, he's very useful around the area with those kind of deep completions as a prime example. He has a good number of key passes. Very good with the ball at his feet, so he's able to advance play as well. And I think what we saw last year from Walker-Peters is this is a player that is playing within a poor team, and maybe statistically he's probably, I think, suffered from that. If you look at the season in the Championship and the season before, far more rounded in terms of that ability in which he's played as well. And when we turn that and look at it from the kind of the pizza chart piece, again, it can be looked at as negatively. But we've got to remember that when we look at these statistics, we're not necessarily saying this player is good or this player is bad specifically. What this is actually more a highlight or an indication of is the style of play that they had over the course of the last year. With Walker-Peters, what is very clear, sorry everyone, I have got a bit of a cold here, is that, again, his ability to carry is exceptional. With 96th percentile for progressive runs, for dribbles from a fullback in the top 87th percentile. As I said, that ability around the edge of the area to get in positions where he's able to make those completions on the edge of the area and get the ball into the area and make threatening opportunities is second to none. Again, defensively, he has a number of duels, and yes, whilst the win percentage is down, he is a good 1v1 defender and a good defender. Where he does maybe lack is in that those physical duels, so those kind of aerial challenges where he is maybe less effective and maybe more at fault in certain aspects. But in general, it's a very solid player. And when we compare him to Wan-Bissaka, yes, there are some deficiencies in there when you look at it as a like for like. But again, it's as I keep punctuating, the style that he played at Southampton is very different to the style that we played. And Wan-Bissaka had an exceptional year for West Ham and was pretty much at the centre of all West Ham's good that we did last season. Walker Peters was in a difficult, I guess, season. Not for him personally. I think he had a decent season, but for him in terms of the team setup and structure. But the points that we should be looking at and happy at is that the number of times he's able to progress the ball. When we look at, say, Wan-Bissaka, that is very similar in terms of play. Likes to get on the ball, likes to progress it, likes to bring it forward. Is happy under pressure and to bring that ball forward. Likes to engage offensively. Again, something we saw with Wan-Bissaka. Again, key passes are obviously markedly down from Wan-Bissaka, but again, they put him in a team where the foundations are a bit more solid, maybe performing better in the Premier League. Whilst we weren't lightning or anything, Kyle Walker-Peters is more like he's going to have Boeing in front of him, so he's going to help improve on some of those statistics and help you in your game. But from a statistical standpoint, yes, it is maybe not the most exciting signing. Doesn't necessarily set the world alight in that respect. However, let's kind of look at this from more of a the eye test stuff. What do you feel that maybe the statistics aren't showing us or telling us about Kyle Walker-Peters? What have you taken as kind of his key strengths and weaknesses that, again, as I say, the data doesn't really allude to? And from a tactical standpoint, how do you see him being of benefit to Potter, and how do you think he would be used? And obviously, we've got the AFCON coming up in January, and again, this could be a very key kind of transfer in helping us kind of navigate that period as well.
I think when you look at how he fits the system, his versatility is almost a hindrance to him when you talk about him, because there are so many ways he could be utilised by Graham Potter, and so many ways that he will actually have to be used by Graham Potter. He is going to have to come in and cover either side at some point, but during AFCON, he's going to be a major asset to us. And we're probably going to be changing how we play at that point in time to some degree. I think when you look at Kyle Walker-Peters as a whole, he is someone who's incredibly confident on the ball. And I think his defensive attributes are often kind of looked down upon because of the fact that he played for Southampton in the Premier League, but also the fact that he's quite easy to bully in the air. Now, he's a fullback. I'm not expecting him to win absolutely every single aerial duel. We have got a real gem on our hands with Aaron Wan-Bissaka, in the fact that he can do both and he can compete physically on a level that Kyle Walker-Peters can't. However, it's going to have to be give and take with who goes in that position, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Wan-Bissaka actually plays as that right-sided centre-back at some point in the season, allowing Kyle Walker-Peters to get forward and then kind of interchanging and doing so with one eye on the defence and the opposite player. If, say, Aaron Wan-Bissaka wants to get a bit further forward, Kyle Walker-Peters sees that, offers an outlet, but then drops back and covers. So I think this is where you get a very solid player. His reading of the game is strong. And one thing that I think is important to stress is it's not just that he looked good for Southampton this year in a poor side. I think they have three real assets in that squad. One of them isn't actually theirs, but they have, well, wasn't there last season, but is theirs. Shea Charles, I think he's a fantastic young midfielder. They have Fernandez, another absolutely fantastic young midfielder that West Ham fans are, very happy to have been linked with. And Kyle Walker-Peters. They, for me, were the three assets they own that are the standouts. Ugo Chukwu, Chelsea player, is kind of very good player, but they don't own him. So the contrast, the thing that is good for me is the contrast with Kyle Walker-Peters. When he played in the Championship, they were a dominant side. They were often the favourites going into games, and they could control matches. He excelled, and he was fantastic. And I think that when you have someone who can offer you the ability to not just be a defensive player, but dictate a game, know when, you can grab a game by the scruff of the neck and go in for the kill. You mentioned the deep completions in the analysis breakdown. I think that when you look at his delivery over the past few seasons, it's been a bit more consistent than Wan-Bissaka's. And it's important to also caveat that with the fact that I think this is kind of true for both players, but they haven't really had a top centre forward to deliver into.
I think we've probably been spoiled. I think as much as Kufal has been maligned at times, he very rarely finished the season with less than 5 assists from right back. So I think we've been quite, in some ways, spoiled in having a right back who, again, gets down the line, whips in the cross, sometimes of varied quality and consistency, but he was always consistently in a position to put the ball in. And this was something that we highlighted previously about Wan-Bissaka. Is he going to be able to do that? Because it's not necessarily something we've seen enough for his career. We've seen Kyle Walker-Peters get forward a lot in his career, getting very good at bringing play forward. So even that he has that lower statistical rate maybe of assists, I think what we've seen with Wan-Bissaka also does, again, punctuate that point of if you bring a player into certain teams, we maybe have a greater emphasis on that and actually get more players or flood the area more, that you're actually probably can get more out of that player. I hate the term, but the second assist, maybe as opposed to the first assist, being far more involved in those later stages. And we know Potter puts a huge emphasis on those fullbacks to rotate into central positions to pick the ball up or to rotate out and the wide player to kind of come inside and them to kind of get into those spaces. So it's a strong fit, and it's definitely one that could probably cause problems for your opposition. Again, tactically, the fact that you can switch from the right to the left in game if needs be. We've just brought in Diouf. If Diouf is struggling at any point in the season, we don't necessarily want to maybe put pressure on Ollie Scholes. We've got a ready-made left back who can come into the team, knows the league. It's very smart when we're looking at that, because it's just the tactical options in game, but also the fact that he can be used as a foil to take the pressure off two young lads on the other side of the pitch who are going to be, in their first full seasons, the pair of them really in the Premier League.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at Kyle Walker-Peters' transfer on paper, it's understandably not the most exciting. I think nobody is going to sit here and go, oh, you know what, that's my favourite signing of the window. Well, someone might, but I think if it allows us, the caveat to that will be if it allows us to go and sign a real box-to-box midfielder that we've been crying out for. If it allows us to go out and sign a 20-goal a season centre forward. Those are the kind of things that I think really appeal about this deal from just that sort of penny pinching point of view. And I think while it's so easy to talk about that side of thing, it does kind of detract from the fact that aside from the aerial duels, this is a very complete footballer. This is someone who is good carrying the ball, is happy knocking it past someone and utilising his pace, but also we saw it against us at home when Southampton got the draw that sent fans into meltdown. It sent me into meltdown as well. But he was absolutely hammering us For the full 90 minutes, he was their outlet. And, Ugo Chikwu and Fernandez bossed it in the midfield, but he was there offering the crosses, and ultimately was one of the main reasons that they got their goal, because he puts in a cross, and look, it does take a deflection, it falls to Ugo Chikwu, luckily, but if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle. And if he doesn't make that run, if he doesn't try and play that ball in, they don't score a goal. So exactly. I think that what you have to look at here is you've got a willing runner, someone who's going to work hard, someone who's super versatile and is going to give you constant work rate regardless of where he is put. And for West Ham fans, I think that is generally one of the main things that we would look for in a defender.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably a fair point to make, and to kind of wrap it up and kind of draw a conclusion on it. But yeah, it's not exciting. It's not a flashy deal. But we're probably not in a window where we can really be pushing it all out for flashy and exciting deals across the board. We're going to need, from time to time, if we go for this much younger model, which we're kind of seeing when you mentioned Fernandez as a player linked. Juve we just signed. They're both players under the age of 21. If we're going to continue in that vein and buy more players under the age of 25, the odd 27, 28-year-old like Carl Peters, it is, whilst it may not be flashy or exciting, is going to be important to ensure that we still have that level of experience, because we're also going to be losing a fair level of experience with players that are going to be sold over the duration of this window, and the 6 players have already lost. So we're going to need to have some of that in there. But as you've mentioned, the important thing is that versatility you can bring, how that can help West Ham just have a player that is able to play different roles within a game in itself, to maybe drop into midfield if we want to kind of try and flood and create overloads in there. We can do that. If we want to maybe stretch the opposition, again, we have a player that does that. It has the pace to be an option in behind as well when Bowen's pulling in the fullback by tucking in. It just gives us those many options we can. Yes, there are some cons in there that his final third play can be a little inconsistent. I think some of that last year was quite a bit due to the inefficiencies of Southampton. Again, any Southampton fans watching, sorry to harp on about it.
You saw it against us in the game at their place. He was putting in cross after cross, and Onuachu just couldn't head a ball if his life depended on it in that match.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the point. If Fulkrook is in any type of form, and we saw the near miss again, we've got to get him on the pitch and keep him on the pitch. But we saw in the friendly the bullet header opportunity he had from James Ward-Prowse corner. If he's able to get continual ammunition put into the area, he is a threat aerially and can challenge the opposition. But I think the pros vastly outweigh any cons. From a physical point of view, yes, he can be dominated in aerial duels, which can maybe lead us with a little bit of a problem, maybe at the back post, defending back post crosses, etc., and maybe looking for him to be targeted. However, he'll be brilliant for us in transition. He's an outlet as well when we are having possession, because of the way he can utilise the ball, drop into positions to receive under pressure, to take on the opposition as well with his pace. It's certainly someone that provides us with a good technical base. He is very comfortable tactically and very kind of flexible in that tactical approach. And as we're moving to this more possession and controlled possession style with Potter, this does feel like a very, very smart signing to be part of the first team, or maybe just as a complement to the first team. And I think it's one of those players that you kind of go, it fits the blueprint of what Potter is trying to do. But yeah, I think this is a good signing for us. Again, it's a free, if you can call it free. He's a free. But let us know what you think. Do you like this deal? Are you happy with this deal? Do you think that this is a smart move by West Ham, or would you prefer us to have maybe gone for it for another player? Let us know in the comments. If you like this, please do like, please do subscribe, share, all of those things. But again, let us know your thoughts on this transfer. How do you think this will play out, and how do you think it maybe fits for West Ham? But Sloth, any final thoughts?
No, I think you've covered it nicely. I think with a proper striker in the box, which, you know, chance to be a fine thing at West Ham, but if we can get one on the pitch for the full season, then I think we'll be looking at a very good asset and someone who I think is going to offer us the potential to maybe go on a decent cup run. So yeah, I've got my fingers crossed for this. I think it's a smart deal.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. So yeah, Sloth, I guess there's one last thing to say then on that positive note, and that is,
On your lines.